And so it's like, you don't have a problem with judgment.
Yeah.
You have a problem with someone saying that you aren't what you think you are.
I'm going to choose to be blind so that I can't even recognize the truth, because if I recognize it, I'm going to feel a responsibility to say it, but I can't say it because that's not okay in our culture.
I want what's best for you more than I want you to be comfortable, and more than I want to say whatever it is I want to say. Then Jesus turned to the woman and was like, go and sin no more. What you're doing is sin. I don't condone it. I just don't condone other people pretending like they don't have sin. But I don't condone that in the exact same way that I don't condone you pretending like you don't have sin.
Hey guys, welcome to Hereditas Co. In this episode, we are going to be talking about safe people and what makes someone safe and how you can know if you're a safe person for people to talk to. This was a very raw conversation that we weren't actually sure we were going to post, but I think it will be useful and I hope it blesses you.
There's a humility of, wow, how often has that been me when I've had this issue and somebody has tried to speak into it and I've been totally unable to receive it because I can't even see that they're right about what the problem is. And then being unsure of how much or what to speak into somebody else's life because I don't know if they're going to receive it or not, or recognize it or not, or if they're going to be offended and feel misunderstood or feel judged instead of like, I want to be a safe place. Maybe we need to talk about that too. Like, I want to be a safe place for someone to open up and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel like I'm judging them for where they are, for what their circumstances are, or for how they feel about it.
Yeah.
Even if I have more insight into the situation than they do, maybe because I've been in a similar place and maybe just because the Holy Spirit has given insight. But sometimes I don't. Well, sometimes I don't speak because I'm not supposed to at the time. Sometimes I don't speak because I'm afraid that they'll feel judged by what I say or that they'll feel offended by what I say. And so what is the difference between being a safe person for somebody to be vulnerable and then being a safe person in the sense of I'm going to be truthful with you, even if that offends you and makes you feel like I'm being judgmental of you?
Yeah.
Is it I mean, it has to be partially how and what I say, how I say what I say, but also I can't control how they're going to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, if you go back to just physical safety, right? It's not possible. It's like what Jordan Peterson talks about of like, it's not possible to be a good man if you aren't a dangerous man first.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if you don't have the capacity
Yeah.
to do an evil thing by force, then you don't get any we're not like, oh wow, look at you little weak butt turd who can't do anything.
You're
Like,
so
no one's
kind
proud
and
of you for being
gentle
kind and
and-
gentle. Like, if you aren't, someone's gonna crush your face. Like, like it doesn't count for anything. And so it's like, physically, it's like safety, true safety only comes with the potential of true unsafety and like true danger. Like, I can only I can protect you the most amount when I am carrying and fully capable and willing to use a firearm. I can also murder you the quickest when I'm carrying and capable and fully willing to use a firearm. And so it's like, the highest amount of safety is inseparable from the highest amount of danger in a purely logistic sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my kids are the safest when I have a gun in the house. My kids are also potentially the most in danger when I have a gun in the house. Because either way, like in either extreme of the axis, like, the gun is kind of the king. You know, it's the great equalizer, right? And so it's like safety, it can't just be built upon the one logistical thing. And so in the relationships, I feel like safety and judgment and all that, like it can't just be built on are you going to make me feel good?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like the safest person is not the person who only tells you things that don't hurt your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
The safest person is the person who loves you so much that they will always tell you the truth and nothing less than the truth, but they will also only do it if it's what's best for you. So it's like, in order to be safe, you have to have like the ultimate logistical thing is like a willingness to tell the truth. Right? But it's like that House episode of like the truth, not the truth serum thing, but like when you have the inhibitor in your, I think it's the hypothalamus, but that it's like you have no filter. Like you just say everything. And so it's like the highest amount of safety logistically comes from someone willing to tell you the truth no matter what. But the most amount of unsafety also comes from someone being willing to tell you the truth no matter what.
Yeah.
And the difference between the unsafe judgmental thing and the safe loving thing,
or the safe, maybe offensive thing.
Yeah, safe offensive thing is probably a better way of saying it, is that the person who is saying it, it's the motivation behind the person that's saying it. Because a person that has no filter is just saying everything that's true, regardless of if it's helpful or not.
Right.
And the person that is willing to offend you out of love is the person who's willing to say anything that's true as long as it's helpful. And we make this like false dichotomy thing of like, it has something to do with the amount of truth that you'll tell me. But that's the same at either end. Like it's the same gun that protects you or the same gun that kills you. Like the gun doesn't really have anything to do with it. Like the truth is just the truth.
Yeah.
Me saying it is just me saying it.
Yeah. I think there's two filters. I think there's a filter of the person saying the words. You have to have the filter of love being the motivation.
Yeah.
Behind why you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
But also as the person receiving that truth, you're either going to assume that the person that's speaking truth is trying to hurt you or harm you, or that they are speaking those words for your benefit.
Yeah.
And so I think the love filter there is like a double.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like the reason why I feel like so many of us run into problems is because we try to let someone else be the standard and be the one who defines whether I'm speaking it out of love to you. Like I try to judge whether I'm being truthful out of love based on your response.
Yeah. Well, you hurt me, so that wasn't loving.
Yeah. Like forgetting that, no, like what determines whether it was loving was, did I have your best interest in heart when I did it? That determines my portion of the whole thing.
Yeah.
How you received it is still a whole, it's the other half of the equation. Like, so I can't just like ignore it.
Right.
But the problem is that I try to take how you receive it to determine whether or not that's the truth of how I gave it. But that can be flipped around either way, because I can say something in truth and in love and you take it wrong.
Yeah.
And I believe that it wasn't really in truth and love. I lie to myself and say that it wasn't in truth and love. Or I can say something not out of truth and love, but you happen to take it right. And then I can lie to myself in the reverse.
Yeah.
And be like, oh yeah, well actually that's what I meant, and I was just trying to be loving and kind. And
but then whatever. In the first scenario, when we do that, when we hurt somebody, or offend them, and they're like, well, that was hurtful, so there's no way you love me, and that you're just being judgy. Then when we lie to ourselves about that, and we're like, crap, that wasn't loving. So then we never speak the truth in relationships, and then our relationships they don't go deep. They just stay surfacey. They're not built on truth. They're only built on approval on the surface and making each other feel good and having fun together or whatever. But nothing ever goes into like real issues and real life that you're living, real anything of who you're supposed to be and become. We're not helping each other in that sense. So it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, if somebody takes it like really well and you lie to yourself and you're like, oh, that was loving when you weren't being loving.
Yeah.
Then you get this like prideful chip on your shoulder and you're like, well, I can speak the truth about whatever I want to whoever I want. Yeah. And I don't have to pray about it first. I don't have to check my heart first. I don't have to be in the word first. And then we just... it becomes all about us speaking the truth. And then eventually there's not going to be anyone to speak the truth to because no one is going to want to hear what you have to say because it is going to wound.
Yeah. Because you never genuinely had the other person's best interest in heart.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I think a huge thing of it too, that I'm just thinking about now, but it's like define judgment or like feeling judged. You know, people are like, oh, like that made me feel judged and that's bad. And it's like, okay, like what is that? What is being judged? What is to judge? What is judgment?
Yeah. I think that's like the book that we've been reading. And it's like we have this culture of, does he say approval? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want you to approve of me.
Yeah.
So if you are not approving of me, that is judging me because I am insecure. And so I feel offended that you don't approve of all of my choices, every single one. Yeah. And so, or when we say, I'm not judging that person, I'm just saying we're not going to do it that way. I'm like, we've talked about this before. Like you are making a judgment of that person and how they are saying or doing whatever in their life. And you're deciding, that's the judgment. I'm deciding that I am not going to do it that way.
Yeah.
But you did make a judgment. Yeah. That's not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing to judge for yourself how other people speak, how other people live, how other people parent. It is not, because we're supposed to look and then make judgments so that we can make our own decisions because a judge is just the decision maker.
Yeah.
There is more to it. Like he also gives a sentence, which maybe that's different. I'm not sentencing someone. Yeah. To anything because of their actions. So maybe we're using that word wrong.
Well, yeah, we like, if you think about it this way, it's like, how many people audition for American Idol?
Oh gosh.
Or America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like the human condition craves judgment.
Because they crave approval.
Because they crave approval.
Yeah.
But approval can only come after someone has made a judgment.
So we just don't want negative judgments.
Like we don't know if we're a good singer or not. That's why we go on, or we think we are, and we want someone else to tell us that. And so it's like, you don't have a problem with judgment.
Yeah.
You have a problem with someone saying that you aren't what you think you are. So if the judgment that someone hands down is in line with what you think, then you love judgment.
Yeah.
Because it leads into approval.
Right.
Right? But if the judgment that someone hands down is that you aren't what you think you're one of the top singers in the country and you aren't, then you're like, well, they're just judging me.
Yeah. And we throw a fit.
Yeah. And you're like, no, like it has nothing to do with the judgment. It has to do with approval.
Yeah.
And disapproval.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, you're not even whining or fighting about the thing that actually matters. You don't have a thing about feeling judged. You have a thing about feeling approved or disapproved.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, in the sense of what we are called to do and not do, it's the sentencing of it. Like we are called not to judge in the sense of being like, this is the final verdict on this thing because by God, I'm the one that can just say it.
Right. But Proverbs also said that wounds from a friend can be trusted. So we have to we have to tell the truth in relationships, like safe. Well, and now I'm coming back to the word safe.
Yeah.
We have to tell the truth in relationships enough that we can be judged by the people who are our community, who we do life with, whether positive or negative. And then if it's negative, actually trust that negative judgment, even if it's not something that we thought we were or agree with. And then we take it, to the Lord and we process through it. And that's how we grow, because either then we can agree with that negative judgment that they gave and be like, wow, you were right. You saw that when I didn't. And then we've had this log taken out of our eye that we can describe and tell somebody what it is. Or we come back and we're like, I don't see that. Like I've taken this to the Lord and I've talked about it with my spouse or my mom or dad or whoever, whatever your situation of life is. And I just don't see this. And I think that you are wrong in this case, but not being so offended by that maybe misjudgment that you then don't invite either that person or the community around you into your life anymore. So we get, get misjudged because people are imperfect and we say things sometimes when we shouldn't yet, because we don't think about it. And then we isolate ourselves, and that's what the enemy wants. He doesn't want us telling the truth to each other. Yeah.
Well, because if you think about it in the court of law thing, it's like you have the plaintiff, you have the defendant, you have a jury, and then you have a judge. And it's like, we're not supposed to judge, right? And there's some sense where you can make a different argument, but for the sake of this analogy, right?
It's our English.
It's like, yeah, I know, right? But it's like, you're not the one that gets to pass down the ultimate sentence on this person. But what you are is the person in the jury who is supposed to see all of the evidence, hear all of the arguments, and then make a decision saying what you think is the most reasonable explanation of is this person guilty, is this person not, and it's like, that's more of the role that we're supposed to play, is like this ability to examine all the things and then share what I see as an outsider looking at the situation, and it's not to it's not to pass down the final verdict and whatever.
Right.
But it is to say dude, well, you're saying this, but this evidence right here in front of me leads me to a different conclusion. What you're saying doesn't line up with the evidence. So what's going on here? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah. I think of a lot of that, vernacular that well, I don't want to be judgy, or you're being so judgy, has led to, well, I can't tell the truth about anything. So I am now going to choose to be blind so that I can't even recognize the truth, because if I recognize it, I'm going to feel a responsibility to say it, but I can't say it because that's not okay in our culture, because we just want people to keep their mouths shut about what they recognize and don't recognize as truth, or what truth is or isn't. And have gotten so muddled in those words and the terms and all of that we are, I don't remember how that author put it, but it was essentially giving your friend a hug on their way to hell because you're not willing to tell them the truth about what they're doing in their life, or how they're living, or what the truth actually is.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it gets wrapped up and comes down to this thing of was Jesus ever judgmental?
Yeah.
And it's based on the definition that we have, yes.
He told people the truth all the time, and that truth was offensive.
Yeah. A bunch of the time. But,
it was offensive anyway.
Yeah.
The difference that it made was the people who chose to stay offended, and the people who chose to see him as the Son of God and receive that truth into their lives and change and follow him because of it.
Yeah. And it's if you look at it in the context of okay, what makes a safe person? And it's well, is Jesus safe?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, totally. Like he's the safest. And it's like, well, why? Well, it's not because he doesn't judge. Because
Not because he doesn't tell the
he's
truth.
the only one who can judge. Like
Right.
he's the ultimate judge.
Yeah.
You know, and he was constantly judging, even, and this is the thing people forget all the time, is like, even when it seemed like he wasn't judging, like freaking everybody goes to the story of the woman caught in the act of adultery. You know, and it's like, and he tells the other guys, you without sin be the first to cast the first stone, right?
Right.
And it's like, and then he gets up and he's like, hey, no one else threw a stone, neither will I.
Right.
And everybody stops there. Like that's the end of the story for everyone. But it's not the freaking end of the story.
Yeah.
He picks her up and he's like, now go and sin no more.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, all those guys he was judging in the same way. In the same way he judged her, he wasn't having a double standard for himself or for the elders or for the woman, because he made them think about their own sin. Okay, well, if you haven't sinned, you throw a stone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all of them realized, oh, I have sinned, so I have no right to do this, because he was trying to get them to see that sin is sin, I think.
Yeah.
And then he chose not to, not judge her, but not, what am I trying to say? Not condemn her to death because of her sin, because he was innocent and was the only one who could have done that.
Yeah.
But that's not why he came. So he was showing that, like, I'm about to fulfill this wrath of God.
Yeah.
So I don't need to condemn you to death because of your sin, but also don't sin anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like like everybody forgets that. And especially people that are pushing for very political hot topics things right now, are like, Jesus, like you are without sin, cast the first stone, so don't y'all be judging other people, and I'm like, yes. And then everyone stops the story there, but that's not the end of the story, because then Jesus turned to the woman and was like, go and sin no more. What you're doing is sin. I don't condone it.
Right.
I just don't condone other people pretending like they don't have sin.
Right.
But I don't condone that in the exact same way that I don't condone you pretending like you don't have sin.
Yeah. Yeah. And the New Testament talks about judgment in other places in a believer's life, the things that we are and aren't supposed to judge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so it's like, fundamentally what makes someone safe is not that you never feel judged by them. It's that they speak the truth, and they do it. I don't even want to use the term like out of a heart of love, because that's been so corrupted, where it's like, I'm telling you this for your own good,
right,
because I love you.
Is that like the Southern,
and I'm like,
bless your heart?
Yeah,
phrase?
it's like the Southern bless your heart thing. It's like, yeah, right, sure though. So it's like, it's that they're willing to tell you the truth, but they always have your best interest at heart. That's what makes someone safe, regardless of how offensive the thing that they may say may be. If they truly have your best interest at heart and they speak the truth, then they're a safe person. And that's how especially for me, like I'm someone who will say like very offensive things to people, but I'm like, I am honest with myself. Like I don't lie. And so if I know that I don't have your best interest at heart, I will never say anything offensive to you. That's why I joke with people all the time of like, oh yeah, if I'm like picking on you and messing with you and like kind of getting under your skin, it's because I love you and because it's because we're really good friends. And if I'm like perfectly nice to you, like at worst it means I don't like you, but at best it means like I don't know you yet.
Yeah.
But it's literally that. It's like, I will not say something offensive like that if I can't examine my own heart and be like, do I really have your best interest at heart?
Yeah.
And if I do, then I'll say it. And I don't care how much potential there is for offending you, because I want what's best for you more than I want you to be comfortable. And more than I want to say whatever it is I want to say.
Yeah. And more that I want your approval, and more than I want your even relationship, because there's always a chance with telling the truth that they could be like, see ya.
Yeah.
I'm out. I don't want that kind of relationship.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's how you know, and that's how you practice being a safe person, is, do I want what is best for this person more than I want anything else? More than I want to say what I want to say, more than I want to continue on in friendship with them, more than I want their approval of my life or my choices or whatever.
Right.
Do I truly just want what's best for them more than anything else? And if I do, then I know I'm operating as a safe person.
Yeah.
And then whether they take that or not is still totally a big deal. And I want them to be able to accept it that way.
Right.
But however they take it has zero effect on whether on me questioning whether I'm a safe person or not. Because you can't judge it based on that. Because it's all based on what motivated me to say the thing.